the difference in play in comparison to college to the pros. I think that gap is by far the largest gap in any sport, from the level of play in college versus whenever you make it to the big leagues.
Brady, right goes to the corner.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Wax Talk with Raw Mints. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Bruce.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the unpredictability of sports and the cards that go along with it. So pretty much the unpredictability of the sports card market and how to kind of navigate that in the space and hedge your bets safely if that's your thing, and kind of how to mitigate some risk. But before we get into that, as always, if you could please be sure to like, subscribe, follow, share the podcast with anybody that you think might be interested. This really helps us get the word out and continue to grow the podcast. We also have a few quick announcements. We are now live on YouTube. We started uploading our old episodes, and it takes a while to export and upload, so we're going as fast as we can, but we're going to be posting every episode each week also to YouTube. If you just search for Wax Talk with Raw Mints, you'll be able to quickly find us and find all of our episodes. We really ask if you could take the time to just go ahead and hit the subscribe button on YouTube. This will really help us grow that as well. That way we can really try to grow this podcast and spread it with as many people as possible. So please be sure to do that if you could. It really helps us out. It'd be a big favor to ask of you, and we appreciate that. The second announcement is that we actually started a separate Instagram account that's going to be dedicated just to selling our cards, whether it be raw cards, graded cards. It's going to be pretty much our Instagram marketplace, so you can easily purchase cards from us and make deals with us on there. And that Instagram is called Shop Raw Mints. We don't know if that's going to be a permanent name, but if it does change, we'll be sure to update you all. If you follow us already on Instagram at Raw Mints. But for now, it's Shop Raw Mints. If you search that, we're going to be posting deals. And again, like we've said before on the podcast, we really try to give people the best deal as possible. So we're always willing to negotiate, and we're willing to get you a good deal and put some cards in people's hands. But those are the two announcements that we wanted to make, and we'll probably continue to do that until we kind of convert a lot of people. But please be sure to check us out on YouTube as well as our Instagram shop page. Again, that's at Shop Raw Mints. And we look forward to making some deals with you and hearing from you. So without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Okay, so the unpredictability of the sports card world and the cards that go along with it. First and foremost, like we always state, collect what you like. If you believe in someone enough or a team that you're a fan of, go with your gut instinct that way. Just keep on building the PC first and foremost. But in this topic, we just want to talk about, how unpredictable it is in different sports. We've talked about football, especially how injury prone the sport is. So to be careful to bet on, recent new and upcoming players. But the biggest thing is just, we've always tried to stress to people, invest in what you already know, or players, that are already established. I think that was one of the biggest things for you, Carlos, is when you were getting into the hobby, you were picking up a lot of the hyped up players, and players that you just enjoyed watching currently. But how long do you think it took you to gravitate towards just focusing on the more established players, or as we like to say, GOATs only?
It took me some time, man. I'm not going to lie. Everything was so fresh and so new whenever I first got into the hobby. I was learning a lot. I was making mistakes, learning from them, and I wasn't spending a ton of money, which was nice as far as, on individual players or prospects. But I did spend money on some players that just are yet to prove themselves. But to answer your question, I would say it probably took me, damn, it probably took me like 8 months to like really focus on like goats only. Like I, throughout that 8 months, I was obviously picking up some goats here and there because some of those goats are my favorite players. But as far as my mindset goes, how when it changed, yeah, I'd probably say like 7 to 8 months. Where before that, there was a lot of risk involved in my collecting and pickups and investments. And then I kind of shifted whenever we both kind of decided let's just focus on goats only, and kind of mitigate that risk, and sold off a lot of those prospects that just didn't pan out. How
Yeah.
how do you feel about the unpredictability of sports in general?
Well, I mean, even coming from a sports card standpoint, like you're saying, you took a lot of gambles. I think that it's safe to say that you still enjoyed yourself doing it the way that you did.
100%, definitely. It was a lot of fun, man. I learned a lot.
And what's cool is the biggest note that I can give to anyone, because for me it's vice versa, as far as I started off learning about vintage and then working my way up and just growing with modern and what is to be now. So the biggest thing that I want people to come out of it is, obviously, if you haven't had that inherited into you somehow, is to start with what is the most modern, what's the most popular, and it's fairly easy to keep up with that. I guess things are going to change with fanatics and whatnot. I mean, as far as products go, but it's fairly easy to keep up with like what the hype is, what the current market is, for modern, ultra modern especially. But being able to understand that and then work your way back, which is what I feel like you did in a sense, as far as when you got to the point of investing into people that are already established, or goats only type thing, is you literally started from whatever the ultra modern was at the point that you got into collecting, and then you just started following back, from years back, into, or like you're into the 80s or 90s at the moment. I mean, those are all stuff that's really crucial, especially it doesn't matter if you're a lot younger, and you're just focusing on what is the hottest product. I think it's still something good to do in the hobby, to focus on going back all the different years, you know what I mean? 5 to 10 years back and study what was around for that time, and then once you learn all about it, then continue to go back. I think that that's important. I think that's what you did, and that's what helped you also understand the value of certain cards, as well as like what you really want to focus your PC being.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you're right, man. With that being said, I have a question for you with what you just talked about. As far as like going back and finding players that are goats or very established players, or whenever you're doing that, how do you feel about picking up non-rookie cards? Like, obviously the rookie is king and is most likely going to hold the most value, unless it's like some sort of exquisite or an auto, or one of one, obviously. But as far as other products, like from maybe second year, third year, fourth year, hell, even 10th year cards, how do you think the value of non-rookie cards holds up? Like, do you think it's still a smart idea to pick up those non-rookie cards because they are established goats?
Yeah, it's debatable. We've talked about before, back in the day, you didn't have as many products, so it made sense to get that second or third year card, and the things that hold value the most are those vintage cards now, you know what I mean? Even talking Jordan rookie and second and third year, in great condition, these cards still fetch a premium. Same thing with Mickey Mantle cards, or whoever it may be, vintage cards. The second and third year cards still hold quite a bit of value, not as much as the rookie, but it kind of like falls in place, you know what I mean, with that. And now condition is everything with any type of card in general. People want to know that it's in good condition, so that's a huge factor as well. But now it's kind of like, it could still be a thing, but it just depends. Like, if you focus on, in NFL and NBA right now, that Prism, Optic, and Select are like the main things, then what I would say is obviously those rookie cards are going to fetch a premium. But yeah, second year select courtside or second year, optic hollow, second year silver prism, these are still things that are good to collect, and we've seen it even with Luka Doncic. Like his second year Prism Silver is nowhere near his rookie silver, but at the same time, I mean, it has some value because you think about what that rookie card is. Why can't the second or third year be at least a fraction of that price? It shouldn't be like a dollarless card, and it holds value, I think, as far as the market goes, but to certain collectors that have collected that way for a long time, or if that's just your guy, whoever it may be, I mean, you want to get all of the cards that you can that you don't have.
Right. So would you suggest to people that are listening that maybe have an inclination to pick up these goats or even modern and ultra modern cards? So do you think that it's a smart idea to, if they are picking up second, third year, fourth year cards, for them to be more rare, so like a parallel at least, or for instance, if it's going to be second, third year, fourth non-rookie years, would you suggest people going for PSA 10s, if they're relatively affordable?
Well, if we're coming from a standpoint where we're picking up modern or ultra modern cards, now is the time to do it regardless, because there is no shortage of those cards, whether it's raw or PSA 10s, even optic prism base, until you get into like the lower numbered stuff with every set. If you're going for the reds to 5 or whatever, I mean, that's where it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But realistically, for the newer stuff, there's not going to be any shortage of anything like that. So now's the time to pick that up. If you're interested in the second, third year market, even for base cards, they're going to be probably really cheap. Pick them up raw, maybe grade them, or you could probably find PSA 10s for, let's say, $20 to $50, where as opposed to like the rookie, maybe $150 to $350. It's definitely like, a small fraction to pay, if that makes sense. But you'll run into more trouble with that if you look back into, like, when we talk about GOATs only, you look at Tom Brady, his rookie year, but then you look at his second, third year, fourth year cards. A lot of those cards are going up in value. And part of the reason is also because you don't come across a lot of these, still considered junk wax era type boxes. You know what I mean? Like a 2002 Leaf Tom Brady card, which is still probably a fairly affordable card, but you start getting into PSA 10s, you see there's not a lot graded, and just those kind of differences. And that goes for any player. For football, it could be Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers. You will see an increase in second and third year cards just because you won't see them as much as all this modern stuff. And the more modern the set, the more production of it in general. Even if you consider what junk wax era was, which maybe tops the records as far as like, production rates on different products and stuff. But a lot of this stuff now is really probably not that short printed. The prices are high to get boxes and packs and stuff, but it's like the cards in it. It's like we've talked about before, where you're lucky if you break even with your value or make something paying these prices of like hobby and even retail boxes. But at the same time, it's like, how many of these cards are printed? Like, you really don't know.
A lot. It's a lot. How many cards are printed? A lot. So I think that you made really good points with that. And to take that a little bit further, staying on the example of Tom Brady, because he's been around for such a long time, and not very many athletes in general in the major sports have been around that long. But as far as like modern and ultra modern cards go, say like a first year Prism, a first year Optic, like, are these all cards that you suggest people gravitate towards if you are going to be picking up later year cards, like more recent cards?
Yeah, there's definitely significance that way with products, but I mean, for real Tom Brady collectors, it's also going to be what's that first Tampa Bay card, or that first Tampa Bay Prism red cracked ice Tampa Bay card, color match. Like, that just really depends on the collector, and that will have, that'll bring people's attention. I mean, if you're trying to create a market with that kind of thing, there already is, but Brady just has the hype, dude. I mean, all of his cards have value. especially people that really, are completing registries of having like, a bunch of slabs of Brady. I don't know, but that's just the collectability thing that we've talked about, like with Brady, for example, is he is already established. He's still playing going on. He was drafted in 2000.
Right.
So, I mean, he's been playing for a minute.
Right.
And, so he's already established. Whether he just like doesn't play the next game because he doesn't want to, which is not how Brady's going to go down, but, he's already established. And so, there's going to be a huge fan base for him for a long time coming. I mean, up to when that becomes vintage. I mean, his rookie year is becoming vintage because we're old, but I mean, think of like 20 to 40 years from now. I mean,
Right.
what some of his cards, the memories that those will hold and what he did in his career.
Exactly. For the people that weren't there to see it, which is another episode for a topic that I really want us to cover at one point, which would be the forgotten GOATs. There's so many out there that, I mean, this could be a whole episode. We can have a whole episode about vintage cards that are slept on right now. That it's like they just because of recency bias, they don't get the hobby love that they deserve. That's a different episode. So bringing it back to the original, the unpredictability, like we talked about, investing in established players and GOATs, and you will mitigate a lot of risk that way because they are established and they've won rings or they've won championships and whatnot. But to bring it back to maybe just more modern times, like if you would have bet on this current season of the NFL, if you were to bet on the current rookies, so it's, the biggest names are Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, who else?
Zach Wilson. I mean, there's some potentially great quarterbacks.
Right. But I mean, if you sight unseen before the season started, you would think, okay, Trevor Lawrence is going to be that guy, right? From all of the hype that ESPN built up, from Fox and everywhere on social media, everybody's saying that this guy's that guy, and the Jaguars are trash this year. I mean, that's not all on him, but I mean, I don't think the Patriots are really that good. I mean, they're probably a little bit better than the Jags, but are they really that good? And Mac Jones, is having him a season. Even mentioning Tom Brady, that Bucks Pats game was really good. I watched that actually, and it came down to the wire. It was just kind of like, it was so strange because it's like, I hate whenever people say like he's the next blank. I don't like when people say that because they should be establishing and making their own name. But the way that kid, he's on the field, he's got confidence. He's just got that he's got lit up a few times, but he does have the confidence still. And if you can keep it up and stay consistent, bro, who knows? But as far, like I was saying, like as far as like this current year's rookie cards are out there, like it's so unpredictable. Like you can have all the hype train around the world for you, and you start the season terribly and you just don't have any wins, or you know what I mean? Like that's the unpredictability that we don't like to partake in, really, unless we maybe pull some cards. But we're not spending this big money on players like this for that reason, because you just never know.
Yeah, well, that's a problem too, is the easiest way to at least pull rookie cards is obviously opening wax. And sometimes, like, I'll say the easiest way, and we've talked about probably before, the easiest way to get in on for me, it's easy. And I know I've rubbed this off on you, is just collecting rookie cards. So for me, it's like rookies are what I go for. And one of the things that I've always tried to do in any sport whatsoever is just from every year, get a good combination of all the rookies, because a lot of them are going to be really cheap unless they're the biggest stars from every draft or whatever. And still, even if you're settling for like a base Dunris or whatever, you know what I mean, just a decent rookie, I feel like that's something to just consider holding on to, because the unpredictability is that these hyped up players aren't going to perform as well as people think that they're going to. And it's going to be those people who nobody thought was going to be something, they turn out to be something. And it may not be that first season, but it may be the next season or the following, or maybe these hyped up players, they don't have the best first season, people give up on them right away. But if you're into certain players for a cheap price, why not hold it? Just wait it out. That's if you can get into collecting rookie cards, is, just having from every set. That's something that I've always told you to do as well, Carlos. You know what I mean? And I know you took to Mo Bamba for some reason quite a bit. But you know what I mean? Like you were making stacks of every different draft, just having, rookie cards, whether it was buying them in lots or, we were able to pull rookies from packs. But I feel like that's important too. A way to get into, rookie cards for cheap, because rookie cards have gained a lot more popularity probably over the last couple of years, but back in the day that wasn't the thing. So the easiest way to get in on things right now is pick up rookie cards, hold on to them, and just kind of like almost consider it like prospecting. Like with baseball, if you rip Bowman draft, or you're into first Bowman cards, a lot of the times it really comes down to waiting 2 to 5 years before you see anything happen, because a lot of these guys are incredibly young. Same thing with soccer though too. I feel like we're sitting on guys that are still like 17 or 18.
Super young. Another thing that I wanted to bring up on, and I wanted your thoughts on, is on the topic of the uncertainty of sports in general. We've mentioned this before on other podcasts, saying that football is a very risky sport to get into, probably the most risky of the major sports out there, because it is so dangerous, because it is so violent, and one snap can be your last snap, and it's not that difficult to imagine. It's very plausible. But not only the injury factor, but the difference in play in comparison to college to the pros. I think that gap is by far the largest gap in any sport, from the level of play in college versus whenever you make it to the big leagues. And I think that that's something that people should be very aware of. That I'm a pretty big college football fan. My family grew up pretty big college football fans, not really big pro or NFL fans, but those Saturday warriors, like those great players, those great quarterbacks, those great running backs and wide receivers, like they can be torching the competition, their whole college career. I mean, Trevor Lawrence's first loss ever was this season. That goes all the way to like Pop Warner, dude. Like he's never lost until this season, which is crazy. But it's just like, that's one thing that I really want people to be aware of, is there's a level of change whenever you make it to the leagues. Like the NBA, yeah, college ball compared to the NBA is different, but it's not super different like it is in the NFL. And obviously MLB is different because not everybody goes to college. People are prospected from other countries, but still it takes like that 2 to 5 years, if you're lucky, in the minors to make it to the pros. And by then, if you made it to the pros, there's a reason why. You had to earn that position. Whereas you can play your ass off in college and show up to the pros and just be a complete dud, a complete bust. So are there any other ways that you can mitigate risk with those sports? And are there any, we don't have to get too far into it, but are there any non-sports or non-sports cards that you would suggest that people dive into? We don't have to get specific, but just kind of in general.
Well, I think the uncertainty, like you talk about Trevor Lawrence, who was a great player, especially a college player. It's one of those things that if you follow someone like that and in your mind you're thinking of the perfect NFL team that he's going to go to and what's going to work best for him and his system, he's not going to that team.
Oh,
he went to he went to the Jaguars. So like I like Mac Jones, and that's one dude that like I have been trying to pick up or pull when I can and hold on to. But at the same time, if Trevor Lawrence would have went to the Patriots and who he's under, You know what I mean? As far as who's coaching him, it might be a different story. We don't know. But that's not to discredit his playing ability or Mac Jones's playing ability, because they're both obviously very talented. So it's like it's up in the air as far as like, is it the team? Is it, the tools that they have just don't work best for them? I mean, what's most compatible? And that's just kind of how it is. Like for any sport, like sometimes it seems like they're not going to that team that they go to a team that you hate, or like, you know what I mean? Or for baseball, it's like they end up going to the Dodgers or something like that. But yeah, it's just like, I think there's still ways, like I talked about, to get into picking up rookies and holding on to at a very low cost. But as far as going after those Silver Prism rookies, and stuff like that, raw, paying thousands of dollars, like it's best to just hold off and chill, because that kind of stuff, unless you can see in person and you're going to pay that premium to grade it and make a return or whatever the case is, I mean, is up to you. But yeah, it's pretty risky. As far as non-sports type cards go, I mean, that Pokemon is one for me. Biggest thing we've talked about, like even Charizard, whether he goes up in value, he's not getting injured. He's not going to tear his ACL or anything like that. So, I mean, it's kind of like, those kind of things are good to get into, and it really just comes down to condition. But you might get into some of that stuff with a little bit less of a risk, as far as, the uncertainty of what's happening in the hobby in general. I think it's important to also pay attention to what sets are more difficult to grade, looking into pop reports. I feel like those are the better investments, especially with Pokemon, because you'll notice with each set, in a way, especially the more modern it gets, there's just certain things that are wrong with it. And that's like with anything, with centering or surface issues and stuff like that. I mean, it's a good idea to focus on that kind of stuff for products, I feel like.
For sure. All right, so let's get into our pickups and flips of the week. So my pickup of the week, speaking on GOATs and rare cards, I picked up, I don't even think I told you this, I picked up a 1979 Brook and Bond Muhammad Ali. This is card number 21, and I think this is the Olympic Greats product. And I picked that up in a PSA 8. Super tough card to grade, it seems. They kind of look like tobacco cards. I think it is a tobacco card. And the centering's pretty tough, and obviously the condition, being that it's from 1979, is pretty tough. And I couldn't find any that were grade worthy that I could pick up for a decent price, so I said screw it, I'm just going to pick up an already graded version. And I picked that up in a PSA 8, like I said, and I picked it up for $100. What about you?
Yeah, it's a super nice pickup, man. Something you can't really go off of anything as far as the market goes too, so I think you took a good gamble on that.
It's a dope action shot too. You should look it up if you guys out there want to see it. 1979 Brook and Bond Muhammad Ali.
My pickup of the week is going to be 2019 Topps Series 2 Fernando Tatis Jr. This is a PSA authenticated copy where the condition of the card is not graded, but it is an on-card auto, or he signed it in person. It is a 10 as far as an authentic auto, so a non-graded card with the authentic 10 on it. I traded this with a buddy at a show. I think he had like anywhere from $400 to $500 value on it. Definitely, I don't think it's that high, but in the process, I will say that I traded a PSA 10 Topps Chrome 2019 Fernando Tatis rookie, which I think those are probably around 200, and then some other cards in trade. Just basically working my way up to this card. Like, I wanted this card, like in general, you know what I mean?
Right.
So just for the PC, he's somebody that I've continued to pick up, and though his prices have fluctuated, and obviously the Padres aren't winning the World Series, but still, I mean, he's just a great young player that I think is worth investing into.
The new Mike Trout or no?
I used to compare Acuna. I feel like Acuna is like a 5-tool player, but he's had injuries, and though the Braves have done well, I don't know. I don't think he's somebody to. I think he's somebody to actually invest in because his prices are so low. I think the Ohtani hype just kind of shut out everyone, including Soto and Acuna, but I feel like those are still guys to pick up, man. Soto is still a great athlete as well. I mean, he's incredibly young, and he's going to continue to do work.
For sure. So as far as my flip goes, this was somewhat short-term flip, a few months. I picked up a 2015 Panini Select James Rodriguez Blue Prism. This is numbered to 299 in a PSA 9. I picked this up in mid-June for $25, and sold it recently at the beginning of this month for $50. So nice little double up on my money. A flip is a flip, and those cards are beautiful, and I have other parallels from that year that I really enjoy. But yeah, that's my flip. What about you?
My flip is going to be a small profit as well. It's a 2019 Select DK Metcalf field level silver rookie. I picked this card up raw several shows back, and I want to say I paid around $60 for it, and ended up selling it for $80. $20 on the card. Was kind of a card I wanted to hold on to just because the field level silvers are a lot harder to come by, and I do like DK Metcalf. Even though it's not looking too promising for the Seahawks right now. I'm sorry, Tiff. But but I do like DK Metcalf for sure. And so that was a nice rookie to hold on to for a while. And somebody came along that was a big Seahawks fan, so I made the deal on that. But yeah, that's my flip.
Nice flip, man. A flip is a flip, right? So those are our pickups and flips of the week. All right, man. So how do you feel about the episode? Do you think that we kind of touched on really the most important aspects of the unpredictability of sports in general, and their corresponding markets? I think that we've made some points that we've made on podcasts before, but is there anything that you think that we should add to the podcast or anybody listening?
No, I think that covered the majority of it. And the biggest thing is I feel like we're just trying to help people to understand, like, you don't have to go gung-ho about everything and just, drop all kinds of money because you're trying to make money or get in before it's too late. I mean, this hobby has been around for a while, and it's going to have its ups and its downs. And even if the most modern stuff isn't successful, there'll always be that older stuff to learn about and fall back on. So that's the biggest thing. That's where the sustainability is in the hobby, is what's already been around for a while. It's not this new stuff that pops up and is really flashy and cool. I mean, get in on that if you can at a reasonable price, because who knows what that's going to be, where the market will be, 5 to 10 years on that particular product. But this older stuff is not going away. It never has.
Right. It's definitely a safer bet to hedge as far as collecting, but that also comes from our mindset that we both have. You've had for a long time. I developed, over my journey in the hobby, is if you just look at it from a collecting standpoint and you are just enjoying your time collecting, and you're not just focusing on investing, you're not just focusing on trying to make money, I think that the hobby will be good to you. If you're collecting the players that you enjoy, and there's a pretty good probability that the players that you really enjoy might not be who everybody else enjoys. I'm a huge fan of Cavani, and his market is not really that high, except for the pretty rare stuff and the low numbered stuff, but his market really isn't that high. He's getting older. He's playing on the same team as Ronaldo, so you can kind of guess his playing time and position on the field. He gave up his jersey number to him, but that doesn't really bother me because he's my favorite player, and I don't really mind picking up any of his cards. I'm really actually hyped whenever I find very low pop stuff and very low serial number things, which I do have quite a bit that I've got for actually pretty reasonable prices. So that's also kind of an aspect to also not forget, is if you just approach things as a collector and you're enjoying your time and you're having a good time, you're not blowing a ton of money on new unproven prospects or players, I think that you should be in a pretty good position. So we really do hope that you enjoyed today's episode. We hope that you maybe thought about something that you may not have thought about before. And I know that we've spoke about the topic on today's episode quite a bit as far as goats only, but it's something that we really want to help people navigate towards, because there's a lot of risk out there, and again, the market is very unpredictable, as with anything is these days. But if you can mitigate some risk by investing in more established players, we highly suggest it. So thank you for listening again. Sorry. So please be sure to check out our YouTube, hit the subscribe. We're going to be just posting. We're going to get caught up to our current episode. Again, like I said, it takes some time to export and upload to YouTube. So we're getting there. I think we're at like episode 16 right now, maybe 17 on YouTube. So we're almost there. But please be sure to subscribe. We're trying to build that up so that we can monetize it and try to just get this content out to more people. Also, be sure to check out our newly established shop page on Instagram. That's Shop Raw Mints. If you just search that, I'm sure if you just search Raw Mints, it'll pop up right beneath us. But please be sure to check it out, send that a follow, and be on the lookout for some pretty good deals to score. So with that being said, this has been another episode of Wax Talk with Raw Mints. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Bruce.
Thank you for listening.